Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Everybody hear me okay? I'm Roger Casey, the president at McDaniel, and it's really my privilege to welcome you here tonight to our fourth Smart Talk event of the academic year. And I saw that many of you, as you were coming in, picked up materials from our Center for Experience and Opportunity, and particularly those of you who are students. I encourage you to go by and take advantage of all their services in terms of experiential learning. It's a great night to celebrate one of our wonderful alumni. But it's also been a difficult couple of days here on the Hill, and this week we lost one of our wonderful students who was a senior this year, Justine Tenen. And of course, the events in Brussels today have affected us all around the world, and I think it would be really appropriate if we just took a moment of silence here as we start our event to remember our lost friend, Justine, and those whose lives were senselessly lost in the acts of terrorism today. Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce this evening's guest, the 2015 Maryland Teacher of the Year, Jody Zepp, who in December was also recognized by Klaus Nobel with the prestigious National Society of High School Scholars Educator of the Year Award. And in case you don't recognize that name, Nobel, he is the Society's chairman and a member of the family that established the Nobel Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize. Jody is a member of the class of 1994. She's an instructional team leader for social studies at Long Reach High School in Howard County. And joining her this evening is her brother, Alan, and it's great to see you again. And it's great to have Jody's best friend, Vicki Rom, with us tonight, too. So welcome to both of you. Each time the news of one of another of Jody's accolades reaches us here on the Hill, we're delighted. But frankly, we're not the least bit surprised. After all, both of her alumni parents have led the Zepp name to become synonymous with the traits that we cherish most in our beloved and effective teachers: a great mind, a generous heart, a firm conviction in education as a force for effecting positive change. And that, certainly, the Zepps have done. Jody's mom, the late Mary Dodd Zepp, was an elementary school teacher extraordinaire. Her dad, the late Ira Zepp, was a legendary professor and a coach here at McDaniel. He taught religious studies. He inspired generations of students to challenge the status quo, to love one another, and to make this world a better place. Jody was 3 years old in 1963 when her family moved to Westminster for her father's first job at the college as dean of the chapel, and her parents became strong advocates for the civil rights movement and the integration of Carroll County. And that work, as you might imagine in the early 60s, was not popular with everyone. On more than one occasion, the family received hate mail and looks from neighbors who didn't like the sight of the fact of black guests visiting the Zepp home. Jody watched her parents go to the mat on their principles. She learned the transformative power of doing the right thing and of risking the consequences for doing the right thing. But the call to education didn't come to Jody right away. For years in her 20s, she worked on the management and operations side of the entertainment industry in Maryland and then in LA. But eventually, she got the urge to, quote, run away toward home, and she enrolled here at the college with a major in political science and a minor in psychology. She found strong mentors of her own, like Professor Christiana Nicholas Leahy, who is here with us tonight. She completed coursework for certification in secondary education with a concentration in social studies, earned the master's degree in political science from the Maxwell School at Syracuse University. During her tenure as a high school teacher, Jody's dedicated her career to raising the bar for all students, regardless of their ethnic or socioeconomic backgrounds. She's working to develop the next generation of well-informed citizens who participate in and strengthen our democracy, a mission that seems especially important during this election season. Jody spearheaded the creation of a government law and public administration academy, co-founded an advanced placement boot camp, increased minority student enrollment in advanced placement courses, and has improved minority success student rates on AP and other exams. Tonight, she'll share with us her insights on teaching students, and on America's schools. And after her remarks, we'll then have a conversation based upon questions that I'll be gathering from you in the audience. So please, please join with me in welcoming Jody back to Westminster, where she's just moved to a home right up the street from campus. Jody Zapp.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm delighted. Big leg.
You bet. Good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Honored, deeply honored to be here among all of you. I may actually do my little teacher thing and ask some of you to move over. It's okay. It's going to be okay. Deeply honored to be here among all of you at McDaniel College on the Hill, my alma mater, my backyard, my home. So, Robin, thank you very much for a warm welcome. Where are you, Robin? Thank you. Doesn't her hair look fabulous? It does. Very classic. I love your warm welcome invitation this evening. It was wonderful to be at the house. And, of course, Roger, deeply grateful for the honor to be here tonight. Smart Talk. See a lot of familiar faces out there, and it's very nice. It makes me even feel more at home. And yes, Roger's correct. It's been about 3 weeks. Moved back on West Green, so it's fabulous to hear the bells again in the evening and also in the morning. So thank you. Roger, you did a really good intro, actually. I'm going to be segueing on many things that you talked about. Western Maryland, McDaniel. I am going to say both, probably, so you'll have to forgive that. Is my backyard. We moved here in 1963 from Medford, Massachusetts. I'm the youngest of four. And my father became the dean of the chapel. He and Mom met here at Western Maryland, 49 and 52, respectively. And they got married here. And so he was psyched to be able to get back on campus in that position. It was really important to him. The 60s, we know, brought a wave of progression and resistance, brought a lot of power and privilege, and racial tension and newly found freedoms. Maryland, like many states, and I do find that my students forget that Maryland is South, Maryland, like many states, was loath to yield to federally mandated law and preferred to follow the 10th Amendment as opposed to the 14th Amendment. Jim Crow laws, we know, existed well into the 60s in Maryland, even as the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act were enacted. Here in Westminster, there were separate restaurants, separate movie theaters, housing, churches. Goodness gracious, many of us remember the hardware store at the intersection of Pennsylvania and Maine with the orange paint still that would have KKK sign meetings and dates every week. And though the Hill didn't greet its first black students until 1968, Vic McTeer and Joe Smothers, the only blacks on campus were labor or players on the Colts football team. Many of us remember the Colts used Western Maryland as their summer camp. And when they realized that their team members could not attend a movie together right down there at Carroll Theater, they could not eat together, they could not dorm together, they threatened to leave Western Maryland College. And so that was one of the first instances from me of mixed message. I'm 4 years old, and so it wasn't about we're going to now desegregate and integrate because it's law or because it's moral or because it's ethical. We're going to desegregate because it's an economic issue. So that was sort of my first introduction to situational ethics. They did ask Dad to help desegregate Westminster, to help integrate Carroll County. And as a result, I observed and perceived and processed several things as a very young girl. I was a daughter who witnessed her father go to the mat on principle, no matter how lonely, navigating a segregated worldview and an intolerant mindset. That lens became the genesis for my passion to bridge the achievement gap and to study policy and psychology because I saw both surround me with cognitive dissonance. How was being tolerant an horrific thing? How is going to the mat on principle for that which is just not a duty, an obligation? That when you see disparity and implementation of policy that is unjust, how was it that it was only my family taking action? Indeed, there were FBI informers on campus taking photos of Dad and my family. There were threatening phone calls, as Roger indicated, and tons of hate mail that Mom had to field. There were trips to Selma, Mississippi, where we 4 children were dropped off at Mom and Pop-Pop's, never told for safety. There were church members who were friends only on Sunday, and there were vicious, hurtful names hurled at us all whenever they got the chance. Mrs. Hooper, 3 doors down. I was 4, my brother was 5. Walked down Pennsylvania Avenue from Berlin Snyder's. She was sweeping her porch, but all of a sudden the broom came up over her head, and she became red with rage, and she's screaming at us. And we're 4 and 5. And of course, much like 4 and 5-year-old kids of color here for the first time, that epithet was hurled toward us, but because we're white, of course, lover was added. And we're terrified because we have no idea what that means. We're kids. We're crying. Palpable. It's like it was yesterday. Because how is it wrong to have black kids in your backyard? Mom and Dad, sure, they stood steadfast with their faith, with their understanding of the gospel, with the living heaven on earth, with practicing what my father would call tikkun olam, Hebrew for we are to perfect the world, we are to repair the world, we are to mend the world. And so I learned what my father calls the pedagogy of the heart. Where there might be a science of education, there is an art of teaching. So I sought for and found a way to serve in minority-majority schools, 35% farms, over 60 languages. I love being in Howard County. It's a microcosm of the geopolitical world, enriched with diversity and language. So for me, sure, public education issues include PARCC and Common Core and student learning objectives and, oh my gosh, the evaluation system and BYOD schools, smart classrooms. But the biggest issue to me in public education is and remains the achievement gap, the opportunities gap, the expectations gap. Because if we don't confront the real and crushing problems of the achievement gap that remain in our schools, every other issue and trend is going to be superficial and disingenuous. Because if we don't tackle what is now the re-segregation of schools, if we don't face the truth about the disproportionate dropout rates, if we don't examine the perilous trend of disproportionate suspensions, if we're not going to challenge the inequity that exists with access and opportunity for students of color in poverty, then we'll never bridge this seemingly ever-widening gap. And if the achievement gap is not bridged, then there is little chance of meeting any other issue, no matter how well-intentioned. In this 62nd anniversary year of Brown versus Board of Education, We're able to celebrate one of the most significant United States Supreme Court decisions in our lifetime. That in fact, separate but equal is unlawful. That in fact, segregating students of color in schools makes them feel inherently inferior. But can we not also stop for a moment and realize that we're presently heading dangerously backward? With the current Supreme Court decisions in Fisher versus Texas, and parents involved at the national level, coupled with the data we see at the state level, the future for students of color and impoverished for both college and career, startling. Maryland, for example, is currently ranked first in the nation for student success on AP exams, and I think that's awesome. That's an exceptional feat. But when you disaggregate the data, only 20% are students of color who pass with a 3, 4, or 5. So in other words, 17,000 students, only 3,400 are students of color. And I find that reality neither acceptable nor sufficient. In fact, I think we're engaging in an unconscionable disservice to students who have every capability and aptitude as any other. It is imperative that we demonstrate a sustained belief in every student sitting before us and be mindful not to give gotcha tests. Some of us know about that, or grade students on behaviors. We can't afford but to embrace the idea that equality of condition is not the same thing as equality of opportunity. I often give my students a survey entitled Thoughts, Comments, and Perceptions About Education. And I'm always troubled by student responses to this question: what is your belief about teachers, and what should their role be? Because it is that question that all of a sudden gives rise to distinctions between advanced students and on-level students and their experience in the classroom. AP students will say their role should be one of instructor and mentor. They should promote growth through a mix of discipline and academic insight. Or they should be facilitators of debate and generate inspiration. On-level students will say, I believe teachers are at school for a paycheck. I don't think teachers take the opportunity to know their students. Teachers don't really care whether you succeed or not. Teachers should teach in a way that allows students to connect. If we can just see for a moment through that lens, then we are well on our way to minimizing the perpetuation of a learned, self-fulfilling prophecy of failure and the yoke of stereotype threat that they walk around with every day, and obviously to maximize access and opportunity. If we resolve to increase worth, efficacy, identity, then they can see a future. And when students can see a future, they can talk about one. Bridging the achievement gap is only effective, however, if the bridge meets both sides of the stream. So my father asks teachers to be devoted to students and be willing to endure the vertigo of vulnerability which inevitably accompanies human relationships and unanswered questions. Dad believed that a teacher is someone who is willing and humble enough to drink from the instructional wells of those who have preceded us and continue to be nourished by them. I had extraordinary training here at McDaniel, and I love and cherish my liberal arts education. Christiana Leahy was one of the best professors I've ever had. She was organized, set, had expectations, no bullshit, you're gonna get this, and that's awesome, right? Stephen Collier, also one of the best professors I ever had in psychology, and of course, all right, this is my major minor. He would call you and your bluff in a second, and I dug that. I respected that as a student. And I do the synthesis of both of them today. So growing up, surrounded by intellectualism and the academy on this hill, continues to nourish my soul and replenish my heart. I remain heartened by the belief that teachers are the best app in the classroom. And a heartened teacher knows that students ought to be empowered in the classroom with student voice. And they should feel a sense of self-actualization with academic progress, where the teacher has an unwavering commitment and belief in the ability of all her students because she walks the talk. She's dedicated to a student's fundamental right to learn. She's moving regular students into advanced classes. She's not going to give up on their struggle to succeed on state and college exams. She's not going to allow students to fail on her watch. She does not want to see what will be a fifth generation of women at the Maryland Correctional Institute for Women in Jessup, because she is salient about her belief that education is an equalizer and that the best for the best of students is the best for all students. As John Stuart Mill suggests, one person with a belief is equal to a force of 99 who have only interests. And I take that and live that with my students every day as I go to the mat. Almost. As I go to the mat on principle in their behalf every day. McDaniel has shown me. Damn it. The pathway, the journey, the adolescence of breakup, the suffering, the understanding, the forgiving. So I am home, and I thank you very much. Sorry. Almost. Almost.
Take your time there.
It's good.
We're going to clear the stage back a little while we both get a little unverklempt here, because this is...
Almost. I know, baby. Almost.
Thank you so much for
Sure.
that introduction. And some folks here have some great questions we'll try to weave into a good conversation. And ever since we have dedicated the McTeer-Zepp Plaza this fall, the biggest question that I get from students who are seeing this plaza and reading the inscriptions is this quote about you have to learn when to be water and when to be rock. Can you talk a little bit about what you've learned about when are you water, when are you rock?
You know, education is a bureaucratic agency. So you need to be water there, for sure. But I will go to the rock in terms of programs for my students when I know it's going to enrich their achievement and success. And great lesson.
Yeah. So you talked about a couple of teachers here who influenced you at McDaniel. Going back even earlier on, talk about your memory of teachers and who were some of those teachers. What did they do that was so important?
Well, second grade, right, West End, many of you know. Mrs. Crow. Loved her, and I think because, you know, I'm second grade, I'm a little girl, she was very matronly. She loved having this little sweater over her shoulders, you know, a lot of paisley dresses. And she was very affirming about reading, you know, so I think there was this initial, like, early Skinnerian thing, right? Very reinforcing for that. So, like that. Jan Ober's here, I think. Fifth grade.
There she is.
She looks the same. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Isn't that weird? That's what they say, right? Teachers look the exact same. Jan, she was great. She's so effervescent and energetic still, you know, and she just made you feel like whatever, it's math, it's cool. Okay, let's do it. Right? Let's do it. Valentine boxes, they were fun. Right? They got rid of those. We get it, but it was fun. It was fun. High school Gelsinger. You know, in my day, there's a ton of AP classes now, and it's great for your generation, and I totally dig it. I teach 2. I've launched 4. I think it's awesome for college preparedness. In my day, there was 1, Advanced Grammar and Composition, which broke out, by the way, to AP Lang and AP Lit. Barry Gelsinger, he's the best. He was the best. He made you feel like, you know what, you can do it. Don't even worry about it. I'm going to sort of walk with you kind of thing. And I remember that. So I employ all of that in my pedagogical practice.
So at an early age, were you looking at these people and going, I'd like to be one of these folks?
Well, everybody's a teacher in my family, just about. So going into classrooms was a very natural environment for me, very natural. So I never had any fear about, oh my God, the door jam, you know, what's going to happen, kids? Because Mom taught, you know, 1st and 2nd grade for a long time. And we loved going in her classroom, help her out. We graded. I learned the meaning of a check minus, and check plus. I'm going to say that. Keep it still. I do. I keep those measures still. So that was in the classroom. Of course, Dad, you know, I mean, his whole sort of professor thing and this marvelous wonder, you know, of being here on the Hill and having these extraordinary scholars come down to the house, and students would come down. So all of that was very natural, I think, for us.
But you didn't go into that immediately.
I
was there
didn't.
resistance?
And I'm not going to say too much about the Carroll County Times article. However, wasn't exactly the conversation. But let me say this. I think because I was the youngest of 4, all of that hit me harder than anyone else because I saw it longer, you know, in terms of being in the house and if the folks are shepherding out. So I really wanted to leave. I wanted to leave Westminster. It was really difficult, you know, because the family, in terms of sort of reconciling how to survive all that, you know, we go through, and it still percolates, let's be honest, right? It still percolates. You know, it was sort of like, well, you know, we sort of understood, well, there's the Brahmin caste, because as you recall, during my speech for my father at the fountain, he sees the world through the servant class, because that's how he grew up. And so we're sort of looking in town and these sort of things that were in town and that were not welcoming at all. And so I'm going to church, but then I have these friends at high school, but they're not friends because I'm Zepp's daughter. You know, it's extraordinary. And of course, I've been told that, you know, I should write about that one day. But so I just wanted to leave. And so after getting a gig at Painters Mill Theater, I was a member of Box Office Management International, got a gig at LA Philharmonic, and then sort of stayed there for 7 years. But then, of course, realized this isn't me, and I need to come back and do what I'm supposed to be doing.
So what pulled you back, the desire, a career desire, or the intellectual desire, I need to come back?
Well, there was definitely intellectualism involved. I was the only one without an undergraduate degree at that time. That was a little pressure. That was a little pressure. But it was, that industry had a great time. It was the 80s, I was 20s. Are you kidding? It was fabulous. But there was a moment where I was like, I can't get a shower hot enough to get that film off. This isn't me. You know, this isn't me ontologically, pedagogically. I just need to come on home. And of course, they were delighted to hear that. And I was right up on the hill. Barb Disharoon, who doesn't love her, was like quick. Just go move right in.
So when you came back, what did you think you were going to major in?
Psychology. First. Kept it. It was weird because I don't know if it's still there. As it was like almost the same amount of credits. I don't know if it's still that way. It was like I had so many classes. It was like, oh God, should I just double major? And then of course, sort of Christiana gets psychological science. So she was super helpful in melding in that great liberal arts, fabulous McDaniel thing, right, where you can have this interdisciplinary thought. So, yeah, hung in with both of them, but just sort of flipped it a little bit.
So someone wants to know, I always hate when I get asked this question, so I apologize. But,
Thanks.
what was your favorite class when you were in college?
I'm going to go with comparative, right? I learned a lot.
So it stands out.
And I think because of that class, really enabled me to bring AP Comparative Government, which was very elitist. There's so few thousand kids who take that across the country because it's very difficult. It's 6 mandatory nation states. But the language that she provided, the language of the field, the foundation from which you could actually analyze this comparative study of these nation states and, sort of how that polity is, democratic, is that regime really totalitarian, typical McDaniel critical thinking stuff.
Mm-hmm. So you've talked about the teachers. What about the things you were reading? Were there books or particular text that had a powerful influence on you?
Yeah, I mean, Rousseau, Rousseau for sure. Mill, obviously, I quoted him. But not that I read the French philosopher, Michel a lot, but I always, Christiana's quote of him about he who says, organization says oligarchy. I still use that, because that's sort of where we are with the campaign, and kind of things out. But any political philosopher, I absolutely enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. So as you're seeing other teachers, you're working with teachers, do you think there's something distinctively different because you had a liberal arts education that from an institution like this versus someone who had a very different
Wow, Worms, that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Big time. Mm-hmm. Big time. And that it's elitist. It is, and I'm sorry about that, but it is, because you're very bright, liberal arts folks, very bright, and you know how to question, and you know how to anticipate that counter argument before they're even able to articulate it, and that's a great thing, particularly I think with high school. And teaching all levels, and you have to differentiate. When I know that, is this awful to say? When I know that a teacher has a degree in social studies,
That's a ... there. There's, yeah. Mm-hmm. So why are we liberal arts people, why are we defending ourselves from constant attack in the media, from the political sphere, from families? I mean, we're in a defensive posture in a greater way than we've ever been, when I think we would sit here and argue all night. It's never been more important.
I think that part of it is today's parents.
What's different?
I don't think that they're as engaged in the education process as, say, the parents of my generation. I think they're too busy being helicopters, right? That new phrase, helicopter parents. And God knows I know you professors at college get them too. And so I think their identity is so caught up in what they aren't. And therein lies who wants to question that, and that questioning thing is a liberal arts thing. Notwithstanding the obvious expense, because it is worth it in the end. There is a return on the investment. But I do really think that has a lot to do with it. I think the zeitgeist now is not about being a questioning, critical thinker. And that's a shame, because there are a lot of public intellectuals in this room, and there needs to be more out there, particularly now. Even whoever wins the election.
So I'm sure you share that message with your students.
I do.
How is it received by them?
I'm very different than what they've experienced. And it's sort of fun. I will tell you, I just came back from Orlando a couple of months ago because I was flown down with other Teachers of the Year to do this new sort of digital online called Teaching Partners Professional Learning Development, and it's called 100 Ways. So they wanted to capture my way, my pedagogical way, my thing. And so I did my way with them, and it's sort of a really lovely interview, and I did what I normally do with my kids in the beginning with other that's what we're called, Teacher of the Year, toy colleagues. And weird, I know. And though they came to my class, they actually came and filmed my students, which was awesome. And so they now have that sort of archive of what critical thinking looks like, because my way is about obviously increasing equity through Socratic thinking in the classroom, and they were able to capture that. And I'm going to be showing them that tomorrow because we have 2 more days. So I'm like, I can't wait to show you my little, because I just got it, thing. But it's around the world. They can see this incredibly enriched, diverse class just sort of get right to it. And they sound like college students, and it's a cool thing. It's really, really cool.
So when we're a fly on the wall in the Jody Zepp classroom, what do we see? What's happening?
Well, you're going to see a lot of gesticulation. You know, a lot of roaming around. Of course, never sitting. You know, it's always didactic. Of course, and Alan knows Dad always loved the symbolic kneel before your students thing. So you know, sort of be of it. A lot of questions. It's a lot of questions. Very animated.
Yeah. So we're in an era in which testing seems to be far more prevalent than asking questions, if that is an oxymoronic. Can you talk a little bit about the atmosphere of public education?
Well, I got to tell you, that's a sword that cuts both ways with me, because I think those who talk the most about too much testing can't teach. And they're terrified of having to sort of justify their scores. So, it's too much. Whereas my thing is, you can teach to a test, but it doesn't have to be at the expense of creativity. It doesn't have to be at the expense of engagement. When I'm up against diehard union folks, and I'm like, if I teach my AP students things that I know will ultimately be a measure for them to meet, am I teaching to the test? I'm preparing them. And we're having a great time doing that. So measurement is necessary. Accountability is necessary. Maryland now, right, has cut back on testing. The ESSA, the new national policy, I don't know. Sometimes you get what you ask for. States are now going to be back in control. That'll be interesting to see. Litigation on funding, right? I'm forecasting that. There's going to be all kind of new things there. But, as students have to be measured, and so do teachers.
Common Core, your thoughts?
You know what, Common Core, people, again, right, aren't educated on exactly what things are. Common Core is a national set of standards by which students are measured. And if, your child moves from Maryland to Oklahoma, wouldn't it be great that we don't have to shift around and have different classes? That's really all it is. But, people pick up on
so how
ideological,
did it get so politicized?
Because it's public education and it's funded. And it's an easy target, for bureaucracy and political parties if they want to get rid of a Department of Education, right? You got to latch on something to prove your point.
So what's your prognostication? Will the politics destroy it? Will it prevail?
I will say this, something that's happening right now is that there's about 55 national education organizations convening as one. And there are 6 teachers that they've selected in the country to be part of that.
Aha, congratulations.
And it's interesting because you're talking about like Teach for America, which has its reputation, with NEA, which has its reputation, with Center for American Progress, which has its, there's all leanings here, but they're deciding to convene all at once. And this is a very recent endeavor. Mm-hmm. And my take on that is that they're preparing. I think they're preparing, quite frankly, for Hillary to win. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to be ready to go with exactly what's going to be needed for the Department of Education and to sort of have a solid backing with more of a concentrated and concerted pathway of what needs to happen to elevate the teaching profession and to modernize the teaching profession.
You gonna be water or rock?
I, right now, am water.
Okay.
But there are times, there are times. I mean, the best of us who really care about kids at the end of the day and not policy are very wary of bureaucratic pathology. And there are moments where I think, look, I'm not going to be the grease to get you to where you need to be, because now you're talking about my students, and I'm going to protect them against that kind of thing. But ultimately, to get the policy that we need to move us forward as a profession, it's a dance. Mm-hmm. No, it's a dance.
So you didn't start out being the teacher of the year.
I did not.
You started out
Nowhere
as a
near
first-year teacher.
Alan's a former Carroll County Teacher of the
We
Year.
got another
So that
teacher
blood,
of the
it's
year.
in the, it says Zep, I don't know
So,
what that's going on.
Can you go back to that first year in the classroom
Yeah.
and give us some descriptions of what that was like for you?
I will tell you that I was Montgomery County, Kennedy High School. I taught at Kennedy and Blair, still minority majority, and doing my thing. And a student came into the door jam to disrupt my class. Pretty intent, pretty big guy, and I was just doing my, see you later. And yeah, he came for me. That was a little scary. I stood my ground though, and everything was sort of all right. But that was sort of my welcome into. My thing is this, and those of you who watch movies will understand this. It's really more about stand and deliver than Dangerous Minds. It is.
Yeah.
Because that's the love that comes through.
Yeah. And you've had that from year one, though.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And that's the theme. As current Jody looks back at year one Jody, what would be some of the critique she might be offering pedagogically?
I think grading is always a first-year thing. Right? Figuring out the grading. You do way too much. But that's to balance out. You want to be sure again about the measurement. So figuring out how often can I do a check for wow, you completed it and that's awesome, or do I have to read 2,500 pages of that sort of thing. But I was ready to go. See, the difference for me, and it's a little bit for Alan too, I mean, we're called career changers that come into the classroom, and I think it is biased. I think we've got a one-up on folks. We know who we are. You know, we get it. We're here. We chose to be here for a reason. We're about the business of saving academic lives. So you get in there and get muddy and let's go, you know.
I mean, I'm really proud of the fact that the graduates of our teaching program here, the resiliency and the survival rate is remarkably high in terms of looking 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. We far surpass the national average. What's happening out there in the classroom that so many teachers leave the profession early in their career?
I think those of us who have had student teachers can tell very early on it's probably not.
Yeah,
But you want to be encouraging,
yeah.
you know, and you've contracted in with universities, you know, who've got the program. But graduate programs are under attack, and I think some probably should be. You know, they aren't preparing. The preparation has to change, and it can change. There just has to be will about it. It needs to be more teacher residency, for example, and not just a 6-week gig, you know, and then see you later. But a lot of it's, you know, and Dad has talked about this. Teaching is a fundamentally human endeavor. It's a vocation in the truest sense of the word. It's a calling. And so if you're looking at it as a job or summers off or, you know, hey, I dig that guy, let me hang out in the English department. It's just never going to work. And the shame is kids know that. The students pick up on that immediately.
How much of your teacher education preparation, I mean, what was so critically important about that? You've talked about the liberal arts preparation, but how about all of those things that the state says you must check these boxes or else you can't be an accredited teacher?
Right. It was a solid program. O Chieng, right, did a lot of, you know, have O Chieng fans. He was social studies. It did a lot of great things. And he was new here too, so he was fresh and energetic, and, you know, social studies weren't congenitally hard to please anyway. So, you know, he was great.
Yeah. But for you, so much of this is about, Parker Palmer talks about the courage to teach.
Sure.
You know, the authenticity of the classroom, the exposure, the willingness to get hurt.
Yeah.
Can you teach that?
You have to be secure with who you are. A lot that I talk about in my speeches over the past year and a half are about you have to know who you are and why you are, and emphasis on the why. Because it is that self that enters the door jam every day and impacts students' lives. If you are not secure with who you are, then you're going to take things personally. And guess what? You're really not that important. You aren't to the kids. They want to learn from you. They want to know that you care about them, but they want you to teach. So you have to know your content. You have to stay current and contemporary. And you have to be able to be secure with all that's going on in that classroom and, you know, what I say, flip, flop, and serve it up. You know.
You're teaching in the middle of an election cycle. I'm interested what your students are saying about the current election.
There's a great article in The Atlantic, Teaching in the Time of Trump. And it's a great article. And I brought it to my department's, I'm the department chair of my department, and had a meeting yesterday. And I had sent it out beforehand just so that they could know, and particularly again, and Christiane and Herb will be able to understand this, particularly for the social sciences, it's really difficult for us to stay impartial during times like this, because we want students to generate and ascend their own arguments, and we want to be affirming and validating of whatever they are going to come up with on both sides of the aisle. But we also know that demagoguery is hurtful for principles of democracy. And it's really, really tough for that to happen. So we do the best we can. My AP macro teacher at least admitted, because it's tough for him, because he's number 5 apparently on the world risk list, Trump. So he's got some real feelings about that, but he's huge.
Do you hear do you hear students saying ever anymore, I want to grow up and be the president of the United States?
No, but that hasn't happened in a long time because it just takes billions of dollars. Of course you can't be the president of the United States. None of us can, because it's just become a conglomerate entity,
So take that reality and mesh that with encouraging your students to want to be responsible democratic
You have
citizens.
to participate. I talk about participatory democracy all the time. Great conversations about Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. Those things are very poignant and important for critical dialogue in the classroom. So you can still live politics. You can certainly still dissect politicking. That's very important for them and their generation. They're very tolerant. They're very educated. They're not indifferent. And they're going to make tremendous contributions. So never giving up. You got to keep the talk alive.
So if Obama had not made the mistake of putting Arnie Duncan in office and had put Jody Zepp in instead,
Please.
which would have been a much better choice from my perspective, tell me what you would be doing as the head of the Department of Education.
Ooh.
And I'll make it even easier for you. And you don't have to kowtow to whatever the particular political issue is. I mean, you literally get to be in charge.
I think this is where real life comes in. Because I'd be getting rid of folks. I'd be getting rid of folks. I would be, making sure that task force actually have some substantive nature to them, and that it matters what folks say when they come in and have tea with teachers, which was a function literally at the Department of Education. And it's cool, it's nice, but it's like, seriously, why don't you help get some rigorous teachers who care and do. In addition, sorry, that was a quick cut there, but all the analysis about Finland that we hear, and Japan, great education in these nation states, tremendous, but they're homogenous. Nobody talks about yet that America just doesn't fit that. We don't fit that. Forget the size. We're not homogenous in any stretch of the imagination. So we're not ever going to have that education system, ever. So we need to think about other ways, right, in which to sort of ascend different sorts of arguments about how better we need to be in the classroom. A lot of times it does come down to, I know I can impact the students that I have. And I'm going to do that. And that's what my calling is. Every year, my set of students, and they're going to do tremendous things, and they do. And that's my focus.
What is the greatest impact you think you're going to have on your students? What's the legacy you want to leave as a teacher?
I do think the ability to question, in large part, that they were loved, that someone believed in them unconditionally, and that helped them see that future that I was talking about. Because that really, that line that I do use, they can't talk about a future until they can see one, really hit me after about 7 years working with diverse students.
My Appalachian grandmother used to ask me this question, as is typical, I think, in Southern grammar. What did they learn you in school today? because she confused those two terms. I actually think she was right. What do your students learn you?
Patience. Patience. We talk about in psychology that learning is actually experience. That no one is learning if there's no real experience going on. So I learn every day. I learn every day about my craft, about how better to reach that person. I'm very introspective. I still weep driving home because I know I've still got to get that one little thing with that little pocket of students in the back. So I talk about this sort of orchestra analogy that teachers have to be that conductor when they have to immediately figure out who the first chairs are and who plays a little too long, who the timpani section is. You know, because you have to play as an ensemble and you have to play the same piece. And so you have to work together as a collaborative whole. And that's learning.
Well, I want to thank you for letting us go to the well with some of your wisdom tonight. I want to congratulate you again on all the accolades and recognition that have come your way for a phenomenal career. We're incredibly proud of what you've achieved.
Thank you.
And I know there are a lot of young prospective teachers and want to be students here that I hope follow in your footsteps. So
Me too.
please, everyone,
Me
if you
too.
could join with me in saying thanks to Jody Zepp for
Aw,
being with
thank
us
you.
tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's lovely. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I know you have a Western Maryland diploma, but I think you need a McDaniel one to hang there with it as well. So congratulations.
Thank you. That's awesome. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here tonight. We really
Thank
appreciate it.
you. Means a lot.